Hey guys, today we're taking a look at one of my favorite toy lines that has been released in the last several years, and that is the Retro Indiana Jones line from Hasbro. Now these go back in time and basically recreate the original Kenner figures from the early 80s, and even gives us some new figures that Kenner never got around to making from Temple of Doom and from The Last Crusade. Now if you don't already know, I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan, and outside of collecting Lego Indiana Jones, I also collect Indiana Jones toys, so you can check out some of those videos on my channel. But in this video, we're going to take a look at the entire completed series of retro figures. Now, each of these retailed for either $11.99 for all of these, and then for some reason, the last two retailed for $15. I know some people got Sallah for $12, but Henry Jones retailed for $15 for some random reason, and then the Last Crusade Indy, I only ever found him on Amazon for $15 as well, so just kind of interesting, and we'll break all the history down as we go, but be sure to hit like and subscribe, and let's get into it. Our first figure is the classic Raiders of the Lost Ark Indiana Jones. Now, I do want to let you know, I did a comparison comparing the first wave of these figures to the original Kenner figures, so this is really just looking at these figures on their own merit. That said, it adopted all of the same things from the vintage toy as far as the jacket, the arms, the design, but we do get a slightly different color scheme where the Hasbro one in hand has a black jacket on, and the Kenner one, of course, had a brown jacket. This is still a great figure, and you can pose it the same way with the legs and everything like that. These were designed to be able to ride the Arabian horse toy. Kind of a little bit weird, honestly, but it does work out just fine. And then we do get a whip. Now, the handle for the whip is more like a bell, and it's very hard to get it in Indy's hand. You kind of have to bend the fingers a little bit, which of course wasn't on the original. And then we do still get the spring-loaded arm for the quick draw of the gun. Now, the quick draw of the gun doesn't actually pull the gun out of the holster. It's just supposed to be a quick draw. Then, of course, you can also switch the hands here and put the whip in his hand, but this is more theoretical because, again, the whip handle is too big to actually fit in his hand, so I've only got it to stick a handful of times, and today doesn't seem like it's going to be one of those times. The other thing, of course, is you can fit the gun into the holster, which is nice. The other thing, of course, is that you can coil the whip and put it into his little holster here. To save time, I'll just do it about that much, but you get the gist. And overall, this is a great figure, but all of these original recreation figures of the Raiders of the Lost Ark figures, in my opinion, fall a little bit flat compared to the originals, whether this one looks or feels a little too plasticky, or things like the whip not fitting in his hand. Next up is Marion Ravenwood. Now, the first thing to talk about, of course, is the awesome little monkey inclusion here of the Cairo monkey. It is different from the original Kenner one, but a lot of people didn't have this piece, so this was a good way to just kind of add it to your displays. That said, the Marion figure has tons and tons of detail. Not only does she have a cloth dress here that looks really, really great, it's so detailed, but of course we have a lot of very unique molding on the front and back of the dress. You can lift the arms up to pose her as well. The head turns from side to side, and I'm sure back in the 80s that kids tried to light these with matches, but I would not recommend that by today's standards. Up next is Toht, a really great figure, and just like the original, he does have this vinyl cape that goes on over top for his cloak, but we're going to take that off. You can see you just slide him out a little, something like that. He does have a gun in his opposite hand, and it's a really pretty faithful recreation of the original Toht gun. Of course, he has the same posability of the legs everywhere, and then we do have molding on the hand for the Staff of Ra headpiece that got embossed into his hand, or I guess rather branded into his hand, but it does look really good. I do like this figure a lot. The funny thing I'll say is the little red handkerchief there in his pocket looks like the Rolling Stones tongue a little bit, doesn't it? That brings us to Belloq, who gets kind of the most accessories of any figure here. Of course, the figure looks really, really great. We do have the staff here with the ram's heads on it, just like the original, and the arms move up and down. The legs have the same posability. If we lift the skirt up, you can see that underneath he does have his ceremonial robes on. I'm not going to take this one off though, because the Marion one is made to come on and off very easily, but this one you have to untie this and then retie it to put it back on, you know, the whole spiel. Anyways, around his neck we have this tablet that looks really good. It is thicker than the original one from the 80s, and the fabric on this one is much nicer than the one from the 80s as well, so that is a nice upgrade. upgrade, and it's definitely a cool figure all around. In my opinion, the worst figure of the wave is the German mechanic. Now, the one from the 80s was just fine, but honestly, this one looks like he's been tanned a little too deep. He does have the original spring load in the arm, which is kind of unique, and once again, you know, same posability at the legs and everything, but this isn't really an army builder. It's just not a super memorable figure, and I feel like if you didn't have nostalgia for the original toys in the 80s, well, this one is probably the least enticing one to buy from the wave. Here we have Temple of Doom Indy, and right off the bat, you'll notice I did something a little bit extra, and that is adding in this satchel, which of course comes on the last Crusade Indy. We'll get to him in a minute, but I do think adding the satchel makes this figure a lot better, because when we take it off, look how bland this figure is. Like, literally just adding that satchel makes it 100 times better. His only accessory is this knife here, and you can see he does still have the spring load. I guess that this is technically a sword, but it is Temple of Doom Indy, so he's got one sleeve off, one sleeve on, a big open shirt. Unfortunately, the way that this is molded, though, it kind of looks like a dad bod when it's all said and done. He doesn't have a gun to put in the holster, and this is one of the only Indiana Jones toys I'm aware of that doesn't come with a whip. Why? That is so dumb. Anyways, on the hand here, you can see he's got the cloth around his hand, which is definitely movie accurate. So there are some nice things about this figure, but between it not coming with a whip and not coming with a satchel, which Hasbro made, they just didn't include here, that is a really dumb move if you ask me, and this would be the second weakest figure of the wave for that reason. Another one of our what if figures, because if you didn't know, Kenner did not make Temple of Doom figures at this scale. In fact, they didn't make Temple of Doom figures at all, but this gives us a Kenner style short round, one of my favorite figures from this entire wave. He doesn't have the same posability because he doesn't have knee joints on account of him being much smaller, and of course when you put him side by side with Indy, you can see they got the sizing pretty much right. Now, he doesn't have a logo printed on the hat, but honestly, if Kenner had done this, I don't imagine they would have put a logo on either. He does come with a very nice torch, which goes well with the old Raiders of the Lost Ark playsets, and overall it's a nice figure, but it is kind of a bummer that he cost exactly the same as everybody else, when of course he is the smallest figure and comes with the least. Arguably, the best figure of the entire wave is Last Crusade Indy. Not only do we get a new jacket mold that gives him the ties underneath, but we do get this great satchel, which you can add to pretty much every Indiana Jones, including the vintage ones, to make them look better. We do get a Holy Grail piece here, which is amazing, and a gun. Of course, you still get the very cool holster here, and we do have a clip for the whip, but he doesn't actually come with a whip. So again, like I said, there's only a few Indiana Jones toys that don't come with whips, and ironically, 2 of the 3 Indiana Jones figures from this wave don't come with whips. Very, very odd. But the brown jacket is super nice. It's a great-looking figure and definitely a standout, and super cool to finally get Last Crusade figures after like 40 years of waiting. Again, a long-awaited figure. We have Henry Jones Sr., Sean Connery. Really, really great figure. Same posability on the legs as all the others, and his only accessory is the umbrella, but honestly, it looks so good. The head looks like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas combined, honestly, but it does look so great, and I'm so glad to be holding this in my hand. I honestly kind of can't believe it exists, if I'm being honest with you. And finally, we have Sallah, a figure that really deserved to be made. Now, we did get a Sallah back in 1982 for the original wave of Raiders of the Lost Ark figures, but of course, this is the Last Crusade version, and if you look, for some reason, he doesn't have holes on his feet. Every other figure in this wave had holes on their feet to put them on stands, but for some reason, Sallah does not. He does come with a gun, which is pretty unique. It's a revolver, and overall, it's just so great to have Sallah after all these years. Not too much to say about him. It's a pretty basic figure, but it does hold up pretty well, and I like it a lot. Alright guys, let me know what you thought of this video in the comments down below. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. Check out my other Indiana Jones toy and collection videos, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.